Do you ever find a challenge balancing, you've talked a little bit about the synergy between your Christian faith and your business and family and these other things that are important. Are there any times where you feel that they come into conflict, or there's a challenge or a decision that's hard to make in balancing the two?
So this is really important what you're bringing up, and people don't really have this. There needs to be an objective guiding force in your life, because if everything is subjectively means things are always changing, and it's not truth. It's just what I believe, what I think. Your truth, as we talked about. I'm like, your truth with everything has been getting really skewed the last 10 years. But if you have an objective source of truth that you believe, then you no longer have to wonder what to make a decision on. It's just, this is how we make decisions. And this is super important in a marriage, because if you both, let's just say you both come from different religions, it gets really difficult. I honestly don't know how people do it. I really have no idea how two people with different religions could possibly be married for a long period of time if they had strong faith in their religions. I just don't see how it's possible, because you would both believe you're not going to the same place later on. The way you make decisions would be so different in how you raise your kids and how you guys operate. Like, I just don't see how it's possible. Now, there are plenty of people who have, lukewarm faith, or they're born into a religion and it's more of a cultural thing than it is
their parents' religion.
Yeah, like that happens all the time. Yeah. Right? But for me, my wife and I got married young, and I met her when she was 18. I was 22, and we ended up getting married right when she turned 21. Yeah. And, we always told ourselves, we went to pre-marriage counseling. We always told ourselves, like, hey, God is always going to be the center of what we do. In any kind of disagreement, we will always fall back on what the Bible says about this issue. Okay. It's not going to be, well, I feel this way, and I feel that. Our feelings are fine, as long as, what we're feeling is in alignment with what the Bible is saying, because that's what we know to be true. Feelings aren't true. Yeah. Right? And so a lot of times, whenever we've had conflict, it was always because one of us was getting away from that, right? It's like, well, yeah, actually, you're right, babe. Like, I am being really selfish right now. Like, I am actually, like, pursuing the love of money in this scenario, when in fact, I need to get back on track and get back in alignment. Yeah. And then there are other times where, it's like, hey, the Bible says, hey, I should be serving my husband. I should be submitting to my husband. And she's not. And then she realized, okay, we got to come back. And like this word submission, people get all out of place about it, right?
Yeah.
And we understood that when she was 19 years old, that was something. Now, here's the thing. People don't actually even understand what submission means. Submission, if you just look at the word, means to come underneath, and support a mission. And so for me, obviously, my mission is, as time has gone on, it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And I can promise you, my wife has been there to support me through it. Yes. And amplify everything. That's the way it's gone. And it's been a great relationship, and it's very clear, but it would be one thing if, once again, it's tough. Like, if she was like, hey, I got my own mission and thing I want to do, and like, you go do your own thing, and we'll each run our own businesses, and then we'll, like, whatever, it might be for somebody, but biblically speaking, we're supposed to come together on everything we do. So anyways, when we got married, we definitely didn't know it would lead to what it's led to, but that's what's always brought us back into alignment. And as we both have changed, I mean, dude, I am a way different person. We just celebrated 10 years like a few months ago.
Congrats.
Thank you. Like, I'm way different today than I was 10 years ago. I was a broke baseball player who knew nothing. We had no kids. Once you have 3 kids and you've been married 10 years and you deal with all the things that I've dealt with, you're like, yep, I see life a little bit differently now than I did when I was 22. And she does too. And so here's the hard part, right? A lot of the reasons why divorce happens is because you slowly drift away.
Yes.
It's not all of a sudden she just developed some weird ideology, right? It was because at some point we got off track and we never recentered. Like, nobody ever stays perfect. It's, oh crap, we're getting off track.
Yeah.
Let's come back.
Yes.
And so you need some kind of an objective source of truth, because at that point, if you don't, then everything is subjective. And at that point, if I believe that, hey, this is what's actually real and this is what I'm supposed to do, and you believe something that whatever, then yeah, you're going to, like, who's to say either is incorrect? Mm-hmm. How do you define that? You can't.
Man, you've dropped a lot of gems there. There are a lot of gems. A lot of young men listen to this podcast, and I'm also listening intently as well. As an unmarried man, but a man who will be married and will be a father, certainly, in the future. There's a lot to learn. I love listening to people tell these stories, and I know that people who are listening to it, especially given the current discourse around dating and marriage and all the struggles between male-female dynamics, and there's a lot of clashes and confusion going on, perhaps more than at any other time and place in human history. Maybe we have been through this before, but I think that this is a unique version, especially with the technology that we have now and just where everything is economically, socially, culturally, politically, all these different ideologies. It's no longer as simple as, okay, the vast majority of the people in the country are really operating off of the same moral foundations and values and standards. You were talking about coming back to that same standard. Mm-hmm. For most of history in the West, it was like, okay, there's this thing called the Bible, and
let's follow it.
95% of us believe in it.
Yeah.
And we're all in alignment. You know, not everyone is adhering as well as each other, but we can always come back to this thing. Whereas now,
we agree that this is good.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah.
Whereas now, there's still a lot of that, but it's increasingly like, oh no, that's just made up, or that's just a social construct, or there's this other ideology, or you know what, I'm just going to make up completely my own version of it, and people keep doing this, and I keep seeing it exploding in people's faces, and this
is my truth.
Yeah, and people never come back to this baseline of like, maybe the answer is already there. Maybe this was worked out a few thousand years ago, and we've forgotten it. It's kind of fascinating. I've been reading through I'm reading through the Bible front to back.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny reading through the Old Testament, because they keep just going through these cycles of rebellion and coming back and rebellion and coming. I forgot like how many times.
They just make the same mistake every time.
It's just like, what is up with these people? You're like, okay, this king comes into power and boom, let's like put back up the Asherah poles and start worshiping Baal and like, all these other things. And then
what's crazy about it all is that, you know, it's like you said, it's happened since the beginning. Yeah. And Adam and Eve they were walking with God. Like literally Moses is leading the Israelites out. Like they just parted the Red Sea. You're like, dude, okay, obviously God's real. Yeah. Like this is crazy. And God's with them the whole time. And they're like, oh man, Moses was gone for a few days, like up at this mountain. Like we'll just make a calf. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if God actually was real. Yeah. And the same thing happened with Jesus.
They're make us slaves again in Egypt.
We would rather be slaves than this, because we don't know. At least as slaves, we knew our life would suck and we knew how it would end. And that's the exact reason why people struggle with faith or taking a risk, because they would rather know what the outcome is. Like they fear the unknown, even though they don't realize their outcome is destruction. Their outcome sucks, whether it's after they die or whether it's in their current predicament of, bro, you work this job and like, there's nothing. This is it. You know, you're complaining about, man, I need more money or I need more time. And like, well, if you stay at this job, this is you're a slave. Mm-hmm. That's what it is. And so unless you decide to go take a risk, which requires faith because you don't know how it's going to go, you know, that's the thing. But like, even like I said, with Jesus, he's with the disciples for 3 years, just literally performing miracle after miracle after miracle. And then he's like, I will die and I will come back. And then he dies and they're like, oh, dude, that was a fart. Like, I'm out. And they run and they deny him and all this stuff. And then he comes back and they're like, oh, yeah. I forgot. He said he was going to do that. And then you still have unbelief. And Thomas is like, well, I know you guys all saw him and stuff, but until I see him, I don't believe. And it just makes sense. It's like, dude, if God was in front of them and they still struggled to believe, that makes complete sense why we still do the same things.